Thank you all for tuning in to another episode of the Barrel Chat podcast. We are a podcast that provides an unfiltered look into the craft beer industry from the untrained palates of two dumbass outsiders. I am Mathew Muncy and joined as always by Dustin Wood. Dustin, how are you doing?
I'm good. I think it's time to talk to some ghosts for this episode.
I'm all about talking to ghosts. We're actually talking with my mom about going down to Waverly, which is down near Louisville, to go to the Waverly Sanitarium.
Oh, okay.
Which is like one of the most haunted places in the country, I believe. It's always featured on like ghost shows and shit like that. I don't believe in ghosts, but the majority of my family loves the paranormal for some reason. Don't get it, but I think it's fun.
It's not my cup of tea, but this beer
is your cup of mead.
Is my cup of mead.
So on today's episode, as you have seen from the title of this episode, we are drinking Foreign Local's Ghostchant, which I think is an interesting name because for the longest time, you gave me a beer and it's been sitting in my refrigerator, and I kept reading it as Ghost Cant. And I was just like, I don't know what that means. And then I finally actually looked at it and I was like, oh, Ghost Chant.
I still don't know what it means.
Still don't know what it means because how are ghosts chanting? And if I heard chanting ghosts, I would probably leave wherever I was.
It's also in collab or in association with Misbehavin' Meads out of Valpo, Indiana, which makes insanely good meads. It makes a really fun, just overall mead in general, but this beer's interesting in its own right. So I'm excited to kind of break it down a little bit because it's going to be like 3 different BJCP guidelines.
It really is. So for Foreign Local, they're based out of Hammond, Indiana. Had no idea.
Yeah, me either.
You gave me this beer and I was just like, oh, this is an interesting outside of Indiana beer. And then I was doing research for this podcast and lo and behold, they're out of Hammond, Indiana. Which, why are there so many breweries in Hammond, Indiana? And good ones, supposedly, at that.
I enjoy the name Foreign Local, though.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool that, I don't know, it's just a unique name for a brewery. And it makes me want to try more of their beers.
They have a 4.03 brewery rating on Untapped. So I definitely feel like they must make some pretty decent beers to have that high of rating. As we said, this beer name is Ghostchant. It is a fruited Berliner Weisse. Coming in at 9% ABV. Has a 4.39 on Untapped. And it is technically an Imperial Berliner Weisse with blackberry, blueberry, raspberry, and vanilla. So before we hop into the BJCP beer style guidelines, which, let's be honest, it's going to be a hot mess once we get in there, let's talk about the can. And Dustin is our resident design expert, so we are going to let you tell us first what you think.
So the can's actually what made me grab this beer originally, because I'd, never seen an orange printed can before. So the actual can portion itself is orange. It's interesting. It's a sticker on top of it, so all of me wants to peel it off and see if there's like another label under it. But the label itself is kind of like a chalkboard art almost. It's kind of a hazy look. There's a ghost floating. It's got some socks and some, looks like scuffed knees. It's like it's got some bleeding going on the knees here. But the Foreign Local logo is kind of interesting. I wouldn't generally gravitate towards this font, but something about it being a brewery's logo font is kind of cool. I don't like they used it other places. I think they should make it just the logo because it would make that logo stand out a little bit more. But they use the same font for Ghostchant and the Imperial Berliner with blackberry, raspberry, and whatnot. I do appreciate that it's just bold and says, hey, it's 9% ABV. Don't fuck around. Or fuck around and find out, whatever your choice. Overall, it's kind of a bleak can. It's very depressing looking, which kind of makes sense with ghosts. It's interesting. I picked it up because it drew my attention because it doesn't look like any other brewery can that I've seen. Do I love it? No. Did I buy it because it was interesting? Yeah. That's kind of my review there.
What don't you love about it?
I don't know. I just feel like it looks kind of childlike art. Like the ghost is fantastic, but the fonts around the ghost brings the level of artistic design down.
Okay.
Personally. On the logo, I don't mind the fonts because I actually think Foreign Local and Misbehaving Meads use very similar fonts. But if you were to have done Ghostchant in a more simplistic sans serif font, so for those of you non-nerds in the world, sans serif means it doesn't have feet or the little like things that help the letters stand up. If they use a little more simplistic one and not outline it in black, I don't like fonts that are outlined. That's just personal design preference. But I'm also a little bit of an asshole, like was called at the beginning of the show. I'm asshole, dumbass, whatever.
I mean, I think it's fair because obviously you come from it with a designer's point of view. I mean, you went to design school, so you're going to have a completely different look at this than what someone like me is going to look at.
I do like the can, however. The actual top of the can, Matt was actually able to open it.
Yeah, so we'll start there. I have a hard time opening cans when the little tab is literally all the way against the metal. I bite my fingernails. It's a disgusting habit, but it's a habit. And they have like this little divot right behind the top so you can get underneath it and pull it up.
It's a different shaped like tab as well.
Smart. Just absolutely smart can design for someone like me. I mean, normally I just use like a credit card or a key or, something like that.
Titanium Apple Card.
Yeah, I didn't want to. But yes, normally I have to use something else to open a lot of cans. And so this was very nice for people like me. I do like the ghost. I do like the background of, someone basically just floating around as a ghost. It looks like a kid who is put in like a 1970s ghost costume, basically, and they're just kind of floating around.
Looks like almost a moon behind it or something.
Yeah, I feel like you could, I guess.
I don't know.
Yeah, because like you can see a forest and some clouds. That's a big ass moon, if that's what that is. So I'm not really sure, but that's probably a good guess. It's kind of like there's a circle pattern to it. And then everything is like visible within the circle. So it's almost like a camera or you're looking down a telescope or something because it's just a very solid visual within a circle. And it's not like field of view or anything. I like the Ghostchant font. I don't like the stuff below that, the Imperial Berliner Weisse with
it's the
blueberry
same font. It's just too much of it because they do it on the side too. The like Hammond, Indiana, same font there too. It's too much use of this very ornate font.
I think for me, there's something about the white outline that I don't like.
Yes, it's terrible.
The black and white, like the white with the black outline, is fine. My guess is Ghostchant is big, font size wise, and everything else is much smaller. And I feel like the much smaller font size just kind of bleeds together.
Well, the problem really,
like not enough. Well, I mean, there's not much. What is it called? Kerning.
Yeah. The problem that you see and what's really bothering your eye is that they should have just done white on the bottom. It should have just literally been a white font. Because white outline on a black font on a black background makes it look like there's no actual fill in the color, and the font or the stroke on the outside, which is the proper term, the stroke on the outside is wider than the actual inside of the font, and it makes it really hard to read.
And I think that's what's getting me on where it says brewed and packaged because the word brewed sits on the black part of the background, so it doesn't look like it has an outline. But then your eyes start, like, as you move along, it moves into more of a gray background.
Yep,
so
you
the
can see
black
the stroke. Yeah.
the black outline starts to stand out, and it just is kind of weird, like eye-wise, to like focus on that. And then by the time you get to the very end where it says Indiana, we're back into a black background, so everything doesn't look like it has an outline. Very odd choice, because then, 9% alcohol by volume, 1 pint is very just formal. It does look like the Misbehavin' Meads, but
It's similar. That the Misbehavin' Meads has serifs on it.
yeah. I was going to say, it feels like it's the same thing, just with serifs. Because if you look at the S's are pretty similar. The E's are like almost identical.
It might be the same font family, to be honest with you.
All right. But I do like the orange can. That's kind of cool. We had the Zombie Dust, which had the red can, which was pretty cool. That does help it make it stand out. Kind of gives you that Halloween vibe. Which
it matches the Misbehavin' Meads really well.
It does that. Yeah, it does that as well. But it matches the ghost theme, which gives you the Halloween theme. So it's something that I would definitely pick up and look at. And then once I see what it is, I'd probably buy it at least once.
Well, I bought it literally because I saw Misbehavin' Meads on it. And I was like, okay, I'm interested in the fact that this is a Berliner, but it's tied with a meadery. So tell me more.
All right, so let's try and jump into this BJCP style guideline. This is going to be a little hard. So for 2 reasons. One, this beer is technically a Berliner Weisse, but it's been fruited. So under the BJCP guidelines, this falls under the fruited beer style. So the difference with that is a fruited beer is one that has a classic style to it, and then someone has just added fruit. So you still actually taste the underlying beer, and then there's just some fruit notes in it. But the fruit is not supposed to overtake the beer or become the beer or anything else like that. And this is different from a wild American ale, I think is what it was called.
Yeah.
In that there is a classic style to it. So the wild American ales are not one. So it's not
wild,
a Berliner.
Wild West.
Yeah. It'd be like if this wasn't a Berliner and it was something else. I guess the Philly Sour of Hoosier is technically a wild American ale, but also doesn't fit under that. This one's going to fit more here with this fruited beer, but we did want to at least talk about a Berliner Weisse, so that way we also know what to expect with the underlying beer, so that way we know what to expect with this fruited variety. So I'm going to kind of jump back and forth. It's going to get a little weird, might get a little confusing. I do apologize. I will do my best to make sure we are up to date on which one we're talking about.
Keep it weird.
So we're going to start with an overall impression. For a Berliner Weisse, normally they'd be very pale, sour, refreshing, low alcohol wheat ale. And for a fruited version, a pleasant integration of fruit with beer, but still recognizable as beer. The fruit character should be evident but in balance with the beer, not so forward as to suggest an artificial product. What do you think?
I don't think this is artificial. I do think that we definitely need to address the elephant in the room that this is very mead forward as well. It doesn't say anything about being a mead, but there is a very mead characteristic to it.
Is it not just the raspberry?
It might be, and that might be what is doing it to me, but it feels like there's that honey sweetness.
Yeah, I feel like I could see that.
And a little bit like that thick, cloying body. from a mead. This reminds me of no coffee, of course, but it reminds me of the same, like, what, New Day's, Magpie. Like, it's got that same, like, sweetness characteristic, and it's got that same raspberry character to it. So that's what makes me think it's kind of meaty.
Okay.
Not meat.
On Untapped, they don't really say anything else. According to someone on Untapped, this is the truth. Sweet, tart, full body.
That was me, right?
Yep. That it was. They don't have anything out on here other than Imperial Berliner Weisse with all the fruits and some vanilla. So that is what I was wondering. Like, what does Misbehaving have to do with this? Yeah, because you don't put it in there at all. And like you said, maybe it is the
fruits or whatnot.
Fruits and stuff. Yeah. Maybe it'd be like if you did something with one of the apple orchards that make meads.
But there is the tart and sour characteristics on the back end that makes this a traditional Berliner with a bunch of fucking fruit added.
Yes. Yeah. You definitely can taste the beer in this and what you would expect out of a Berliner Weisse. For aroma, this is for a traditional Berliner Weisse. A sharply sour, somewhat acidic character is dominant, can have up to a moderately fruity character. The fruitiness may increase with age, and a flowery character may develop. A mild Brettanomyces aroma may be present. No hop aroma, diacetyl, or DMS. And then if we jump over to the fruited beer, aroma-wise varies by base style. The fruit character should be noticeable in the aroma. However, some fruit, raspberries, cherries, have stronger aromas and are more distinctive than others, like blueberries or strawberries. This allows for a range of fruit character and intensities from subtle to aggressive. Hop aroma may be lower than in the base style to better show the fruit character. The fruit should add an extra complexity, but not be so prominent as to unbalance the resulting presentation.
Okay. Raspberry jumps out hard, but I think the vanilla is pretty present in the aroma as well. So I think that's what I'm getting. It's like a raspberry vanilla. It's like a nice sweetness with that tartness that comes with a raspberry.
Yeah, you get a lot of berry.
Yeah,
like it does feel more raspberry forward, but this reminds me of like when you buy something that just says berry and you know that it's got raspberry, blackberry, blueberry, all that shit in it. And you're just like, yeah, I can smell all of it.
Mixed berries.
Mixed berries, yes. That's what this smells like. But you do get that vanilla at the kind of like the fruit sweetness, tartness at the front, and then the vanilla on the back.
It mellows it nicely towards the end. And it smells like a beer. But like a sweet beer, but it has
that kind of weedy Berliner Weisse smell to it. So that does help because it does smell like a beer and not just a pressed juice.
I would make a candle out of it. It smells great.
It really does. It really does.
Straight up, this would be a candle in my office.
Moving on to appearance. Very pale straw in color. This is for a Berliner Weisse.
With nothing added.
Clarity ranges from clear to somewhat hazy, large, dense, white head with poor retention due to high acidity and low protein and hop content. Always effervescent. And for a fruited beer, this is going to vary by base style and special ingredients. Lighter colored beers should show distinctive ingredient colors, including in the head. The color of the fruit in beer is often lighter than the flesh of the fruit itself and may take on slightly different shades. Variable clarity, although haze is generally understandable, some ingredients may impact head retention. There was some head to this beer pour.
It's gone now.
Completely gone and not coming back.
But
like your dad going to get cigarettes.
He left for cigarettes once, some bitch. It's a fucking like beautiful red color though.
Yes.
I mean, it is. It's raspberries. Like it's literally like you took raspberries, crushed them, strained them out, and the liquid that you got left over.
It's like more purplish red, which makes sense because of the blues and the blacks and everything else that would go into this as well. But yeah, it is very nice, and it's clear. There's
no floats that I can see.
I don't want to say no.
Can't see any.
But I can't see any. But it is dark too, so it's not like super clear or anything. Like you can't see your fingers on the other side of the glass whatsoever.
No, not even looking in light.
Yeah, I think appearance wise, you see this and it makes you want to drink it. Like,
yeah, it's a pretty beer. It's one that if you got it in a flight, when you first saw it with the head retention, you'd be like, "Whoa, that's fucking crazy! Like, what is that?" And I would want to drink it. Or if I saw somebody else's flight walk by with it at the brewery, I would want to ask what it was, because it's going to stand out next to all the straws and the browns and all that.
Yeah, it definitely stands out on its own. It's a pretty little reddish purple color.
She party.
And now we're going to get into flavor. So for a regular Berliner Weisse, you want a clean lactic sourness dominant and can be quite strong, although not so acidic as to be alembic. Some complementary bready or grainy wheat flavor is generally noticeable. Hop bitterness is very low. A mild Brettanomyces character may be detected, as may a restrained fruitiness. No hop flavor, no diacetyl or DMS. And for the fruited side of this, it's going to vary based on base style. Going to vary by base style. As with aroma, distinctive fruit flavors should be noticeable and may range in intensity from subtle to aggressive, but the fruit character should not be artificial or inappropriately overpowering as to suggest a fruit juice drink. Bitterness, hop, malt flavors, alcohol content, and fermentation byproducts, such as esters, should be appropriate for the base style, but be harmonious and balanced with distinctive fruit flavors present. Fruit generally adds flavor, not sweetness, since fruit sugars usually fully ferment, thus lightening the flavor and drying out the finish. However, residual sweetness is not necessarily a negative characteristic unless it has a raw, unfermented quality. Some fruit may add sourness, bitterness, and tannins, which must be balanced in the resulting flavor profile.
Well, I feel like there's a tartness and a little bit of a bitterness on the back end that makes me realize the base beer's there. But it's a nice, sharp citrus / raspberry and strawberry notes throughout. I think it's fantastic. That's kind of the landing point for me. Because it tastes like a beer, but it's a fucking heavily fruited beer.
I mean, there's really only one way to describe this beer. And we both know what it is. And it hasn't been said yet. And it'll be the first time that this phrase has been uttered
on this
version of Barrel Chat. And it is a phrase that we should A, get tattooed,
and patent,
B, patent, and C, needs to be on a shirt. Why did we never put this on a shirt?
Damn it, that should have been on the back of our hoodies.
You can't fuck up a raspberry beer.
You can't. Raspberries are the shit.
And if you can, for the love of God, don't do it. Don't tell us about it. Don't send it to us. Don't make us drink it. But that's how I feel about this. It's more than just raspberry, but there's a lot of raspberry. You can definitely taste the raspberry in this. And it's mostly because of the tartness. The raspberry tartness is a very distinct tartness, especially in beers, at least I find. And it comes out in this. And everything is just balanced. There's that Berliner sour it's not a puckering sour. It's not a ridiculous sour that like you got to like wait to like get back into it. You can kind of feel it back in your jaw. Sometimes like
it's just a beautiful dance on your palate.
Yeah, it is just a wonderfully blended Berliner Weisse with some fruit and vanilla. And I do feel like the vanilla is what makes everything pop.
Yep.
I literally cannot tell you why I think that. There's just something about this beer that just tells me that without that vanilla,
it's going to be too tart.
Yeah. But there's something with that vanilla sweetness that is what just brings it up just a little bit more. And the vanilla is not overpowering. Even as it warms up, we've had that, quote unquote issue with some beers in recent episodes, where as it warmed up, all of a sudden the vanilla was a bit overpowering, and you're just kind of like, what the fuck? That's not happening here. And it is a wonderful beer to drink. It does not taste like 9% alcohol, which is a problem.
Yes.
Because you're going to sit and drink a 4-pack, and then you're going to hate yourself the next day.
But you're going to love yourself while you're doing it.
You're going to love it while you're drinking it. And yeah, like this is good. Where did you get this?
Total Wine.
I'm actually amazed that a brewer we've never heard of is already canning and selling in Total Wine.
So, man, I love raspberries. Like I literally could eat them by like the handful. And this is like fresh raspberries too.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like it's a syrup. It doesn't feel like it's an adjunct flavor. It just feels very fresh.
Yeah, like if you told me this was, the puree or whatever else that sometimes these brewers use, I would be amazed, because that just tells me like, wow, you've got to a point where all this, quote unquote artificial, which I know puree is not technically artificial, but you've gotten to the point where not using fresh ingredients technically is fine, because it's not taking away from the flavors. So to round this thing out, we have mouthfeel. So for a typical Berliner Weisse, light body, very dry finish, very high carbonation, no sensation of alcohol. And for a fruited beer, you're looking at fruit often decreases body and makes the beer seem lighter on the palate. Some smaller and darker fruits may add a tannic depth, but this astringency should not overwhelm the base beer.
It's definitely a thin body. That's probably the fruits.
You think it's thin?
Well, it's light. Maybe not thin.
I think it's light, but I don't think it's thin.
No, light is a better description.
Yes, because you can feel it on your tongue.
Yeah.
It doesn't just like kind of wash away. But we've been drinking this, and it doesn't feel heavy on the stomach. Doesn't feel heavy going down. Like it feels very refreshing.
And there's quite a bit of carbonation still left in it. So if you drink it and swish it in your mouth, it still opens up quite a bit, which is impressive because it's been open for 35 minutes and we've been swirling it and doing all that nonsense. I mean, man, I don't really have any complaints. As far as an Imperial Berliner Weisse with some sort of mead connection, whether that's the fruit or how it was processed or whatever, I think I've not found something that I dislike, because it's nice and it's drinkable. I keep going back to drink more. Normally with a super heavily fruited beer, it gets kind of cloyingly sweet, and I don't have that because the tartness takes that away. I got nothing for you bad, man.
I've got nothing bad to say. I think it nails a Berliner Weisse, and I think it nails a fruited one. And as people hear us say time and time again, if your base beer sucks ass, your fruited beer or your adjunct variant is also going to suck ass. And clearly that's not the case here.
You cannot
add all of this fruit and vanilla and everything else and make something taste this damn good without the base beer itself being good as well. And so, Foreign Local has knocked it out of the park here. Congratulations. This is a beer that everybody should try at least once, especially if you like Berliner Sours. You are likely going to love this beer.
I'm excited we may do an episode about it. We may not. I have a stout from them. It's a dry stout with coffee. Same brewery that
Jesus.
Kind of excited about too.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to go go up to Total Wine just to find more of this place. They have a lot of just really good sounding beers, and they make a lot.
Sounds like a trip to Hammond.
They're still making milkshake IPAs, which I don't know if that's still a fad or not, but it sounds good. They got pastries, they got triple IPAs. They do a little bit of everything, and it's kind of cool. This is, we definitely need to go hit this place up, because I would also love to know what the fuck is a house beer there. Maybe they don't have
a house beer.
Maybe they don't have any, but I don't know. So obviously, with this one being an Imperial, I'm going to guess it's not a house beer.
No,
so it's
not
going to go under the list of specialty beers. So let's see here. We have 4 on here. One didn't actually make the list. It made its own little list. But first, we have Westbrook Brewing's Mexican Cake 2022, which is A tier in the 12th position. This is out of 50 S, A, B, C, D tiers. Think of it like the American school grading system, but instead of an S or instead of an F, we end at D. And instead of starting at A, we start at S. There are 10 spots for each tier. So essentially, this is our top 50 specialty beer list, and this is across the country, any beers that we bring onto the show. Transient Artisan Ales Junie Swirl 2022 is in at 18. Transient Artisan Ale Ardent is sadly the only beer that we've drank so far that is outside of at least A tier, and they are down at spot 45 in the D tier. And then we did not put Hoosier Brewing's Spin to Win Payout Philly Sour on this list here because we did not deem it qualified to make the list because it didn't really match any BJCP guidelines whatsoever. And to be honest, we don't really feel like it's a beer.
It ain't a beer.
Yeah, especially when compared to this. So I think I know where we're going with this tier-wise. I think we're both going to be on the same page here, but I'll let you start the festivities. Where are you putting it?
Thinking 8 or 9. Could be a little higher than that, but dude, there's nothing that I don't really think hits the note what it needs to hit. It's got Berliner. It's got the fruits. It's tart. It's sour. The body's there. The nose is, I mean, a fucking scent that somebody should wear as like a perfume, like a true like body spray perfume or a candle. And I would drink another can of it right now. I wouldn't walk well, but I would drink another can of it right now. So it's definitely an S tier for me, because I think it's better than Junie Swirl for sure. I mean, I think it's more interesting and more unique than Westbrook. No hate on that beer because it's a great beer. But I think it just falls a little higher.
But not that much higher?
I don't know. Where are you at?
This will be twice now. And this gets a little hard because we never really set hard and fast rules for this. It was kind of more of let's add an extra element of discussion to these episodes and try and figure out, where we think if these beers are actually good. This was just a unique way of doing a top beer list, or instead of just saying this is, this would be an easy one. This is 5 out of 5. All right, but that doesn't drive a lot of discussion, especially when you start comparing it to some of the other beers that you've had. For me, right now, based on what we've had and what we've drank on this show, there is only one other beer.
I was going to ask where it compares to Savoy.
So Savoy is the best beer we've had on this show. Savoy is up there with Blend and
yeah, if we would have rated Savoy on the tier list, it would be 1.
Yeah. For me, Ghostchant is 1.
I mean, I can get behind that.
Because I cannot find anything wrong with this beer. Like, and this is coming on and I think what may help it a little bit is this, we just sat and recorded the last episode, which was the Hoosier Brewing episode.
Yep.
And that beer, as we said, is a fruited sour beer,
But it's
and it
missing
tasted
the beer.
absolutely nothing like this. Like, our biggest complaint was this doesn't taste like beer. Now you have flipped it completely on its head. You have a beer with fruit and vanilla in it. And I just think it matches everything that, not only that you're looking at from BJCP guideline for, but just as a beer drinker. Like, this is one that I would buy this multiple times.
Yeah,
because it's so good. And I'm going to tell everybody and their brother, go fucking try this beer. Especially if you can just go to a Total Wine. There's like 80 Total Wines now in Indiana. Go find one.
Yep.
Try this. You are going to love it. As long as you like some of these flavors, you are going to love this beer.
This is up there with some of the best fruited Berliner Weisses I've ever had.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot. Like, I've had some that are insanely good. You know, I've been to the RARs and I've been to the 450s. But this, to me, is by far the best fruited beer that we've had on the show.
I can't think of anything better, to be honest.
So, well, let's drop it there. And if there's something better, better. I mean, sadly, it's unfair that we can't put Savoy on there, but it's just not fair for other people because you're not going to get it.
Yeah, that one. And sometimes I like keeping the vacation beers set aside. The Westbrook was a little bit special.
I mean, you can get it,
and maybe we do change it up a bit in the end and say, if it is a specialty beer that is a limited release, like a yearly release, maybe we just don't put them on there anymore.
Dude, Savoy's a whale. That's the problem. Like,
yeah.
You're not going to get, like, they probably won't ever make it again.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's kind of the problem that we run into too with some of these that get made on a yearly basis, but they're different. Like, they may, think back to Goose Islands.
Well, look at Mercules is a great example from.
And I was trying to even go with a more
recognizable, yeah.
Well, not recognizable, but like Mercury's is made by a very small brewery.
Yeah, that's
so like,
you know what I mean.
You kind of, there is an expectation that they may not taste exactly the same year in and year out. Things are going to change. Ingredients may change because of
he changed
pricing and
styles
stuff.
Every time. So he went like rye stout, then milk stout, then imperial porter.
So I mean so like you can't even really do much there. Like you can't even rank those against each other. But what's Goose Island's big one?
Bourbon County.
The base beer is basically the same shit every single year, but there's a little bit of a difference every year. And so that's where the specialty rankings get a little wild. But I just feel like out of everything that we have tried, this is 100% just number one. And it's one where you could say, I may like something more. There may come something.
We can move it
from exactly, but you can move it. And I think that's how we have to start viewing this. And I think in the first few episodes, we may not have viewed it that way. We've not had anything this good. The reason I put Zombie Dust at number one was because not that it was an amazing taste, but there's a lot of character. There's a lot of, just perfection with that. And I think that's what is here too, is there's a lot of perfection. There's a fuck ton of character,
oh my God, there's
personality with this beer. As you said, there's something meaty to it.
Yep.
We just don't know what the hell it is. But, damn.
It's got that like mead base.
Yeah.
And I love mead, so that probably plays into the fact that I love this.
Who doesn't love mead?
But yeah, dude, Foreign Local, way to fucking go. Like, this is fantastic.
Yeah. You've knocked this one out of the park, and I will definitely be looking for more from those guys.
Also, well done on the name. Fucking cool. Foreign Local's a cool name.
It really is. So if you want to follow us, we can be found on Instagram at Barrel Chat. We don't fuck around with any other social media. We do mostly stories, so if you want to follow us, so that way you can see our stories on a daily basis, that's usually where we post. We try and keep the reels and the posts mostly towards the episodes themselves, or maybe asking a question or something. But generally, we keep them towards that. So make sure you give us a follow there. We also have our link tree set up. So if you want to share that with friends, that's an easy way to find our podcast on each of the different podcast apps. You never know what somebody's using. If you want to leave us a rating, we would be grateful for that on whichever podcast app you are using. Obviously, we strive for a 5-star rating. If we didn't hit that, we apologize, but maybe one day we will. That does help other people find us through the algorithms. Mostly going to be like hey, people, if somebody's listening to a beer podcast, it may pop up of other people are listening to, some of these other beer podcasts, and the higher rating you have, the better your chances are of popping up on that. So we assume that's what they always tell you. And then if you got a beer you want us to try, just let us know. You can reach out to us on Instagram, or you can send us an email, barrelchatpodcast@gmail.com. Let us know something that you think we might enjoy or is intriguing. We try and ask if it's something out of Indiana or something that we can easily go pick up at a store like a Total Wine or Meyer or a liquor store, something like that. If you got it at a certain place and want to tell us where to go, we'll definitely go try that. If you got a rare beer, a specialty beer that maybe you got on vacation from out of state that we can't get here and you want us to try it, let us know. We will happily buy beer off people to make it worth their while. And we love trying beer from other states, especially stuff that we've never heard of. So, Social Project. Neither of us had really ever heard of that until Dustin went to Arkansas, and we had one of the best beers of our lives. So you never know what you're going to find out there. So we would love to hear from you guys about the beers and stuff that we should try outside of Indiana. So that's going to do it for the show this week. We will see you all next week. Cheers.
Cheers.